Hey everyone, and welcome to the Book of Brianna podcast. I am your host, Dr. Brianna Whiteside, and this month we're talking about becoming an uncommon believer. Now, what's really fascinating about September is that I knew we were going to talk about this topic back in April. That's how far I chart out my assignments. But what I didn't know is that YouTube would push a very deeply emotional video that I had just released last week. And on the one hand, I'm kind of like, wow, this one out of all of them. But on the other hand, I'm so grateful to know that there are so many people who were encouraged to continue going forward with God. There were so many people who resonated with the story and with my journey. And then there were so many people who said, I find the hope to continue moving forward. Now, y'all, this is not me advocating for crashing out on the internet. This is not me advocating for that. But what's very fascinating about this whole scenario was that just a few days or weeks before this moment that went viral, so to speak, I asked God to increase my visibility. Now, when I asked him to increase my visibility, I was talking about my kingdom teachings. I was literally saying, increase my visibility on my teachings. But as God will God, he'll do whatever he wants to do. He increased the visibility on that emotional video. And so I'm like, all right, cool. We're going to just have to rock with it. We're going to have to roll with it. But that doesn't stop me from talking about the uncommon life of a believer, because I hope what I modeled in that video last week was that you don't just get uncommon mountaintop experiences. You also get uncommon valley experiences. You also walk through the backside of your promise, and that journey can be arduous. That journey can be difficult. That journey can just slap the taste out of your mouth. And if we're honest, we all experience that hardship of getting through those valley moments. This was not my first valley moment. As a matter of fact, my first valley moment was moving to Vegas with $30 in my pocket. $30 as a grad student. Go back if you want to hear that entire testimony. Go back and look at the live that says be careful what you ask for. But yeah, I moved to Vegas with $30 in my pocket, not knowing what to do, not knowing how I'm going to move into my new apartment or anything like that. And God showed up the next day. And to the uncommon person, or to the person who is not versed in faith, they would say, hey, you shouldn't have moved. I wouldn't have done it if I was you. But this was God showing me in that experience a very real lesson about obedience. If you obey me, that does not mean that I'm going to come through exactly when you want to, but it does promise that I will protect you. It does promise that you will get to the end if you keep walking forward. And that was my first introduction to walking by uncommon faith, or stepping into this realm of, the uncommon believer. And this is stage 2. This is stage 2 for me, moving to Dallas with not even sure why I'm here, but knowing like I know my name, that I'm supposed to be here, resigning from my career without another safety net. I'm going to say that. And let me put a pause in here and say, y'all, I am not a financially insecure woman. I am not. I have done my due diligence. I have done my work. I know how to invest well, and I've done that over the past few years. And I also have multiple forms of income. And so I saw in the comments where a lot of people were saying, about the financial thing, every believer isn't broke, y'all. So let's cut that narrative out. As a matter of fact, since we are kingdom citizens, we're stepping into the abundant life. Let's cut that out. But when I'm thinking about uncommon lives, I have to kind of think about Peter, because that is one of the people who I resonate with. And a lot of people, they give Peter a hard time, right? They said he doubted when God told him to walk on water. But let me ask you something. Has God ever invited you out of your boat? Out of your boat of safety, out of your boat of family, out of your career? Has he ever invited you to come out and walk on water? And if he has, have you accepted it? Did you accept it? Did you say, okay, I am going to walk on water? Or did you stay and settle for the security factor? That is what I want you to consider. Because when we look at Peter's life, there is no reason, or there is no law of gravity, of water, or principle in the world that should say this man should be able to walk on water. Water should not be able to sustain him. But he did. He took God at his word and he stepped out of the boat and he tried. He tried. And yes, he wasn't all the way successful, but the Bible is clear that he did walk on water. It doesn't matter how long of a time it was. It doesn't matter if it was just a short stint of time. The fact is, no one else had that experience, a water walking experience. And I do believe that when we move from just Christians to believers, we often will experience God saying, hey, now it's time for you to walk on water. That is what I like to think about when we're talking about going from glory to glory and faith to faith. In order to emerge, in order to keep going, in order to progress, you're going to have to give up the former. You have to give up the former. And the former is generally our security blanket. It is generally that thing that makes us comfortable, that thing that doesn't bring us any too much drama. You know what I mean? Like mine was my career. But this wasn't the first time that God asked for something. It wasn't. And when I'm thinking about the uncommon life of a believer, I really have to just admit that the reason why we don't live uncommon lives is not because we don't have faith in God. Sometimes we don't have faith in ourselves. Sometimes we don't think we have the strength and the courage and the faith to actually take God at his word. Sometimes we just say, I believe with our mouths, and then our actions don't align. And I'm someone who doesn't want that to be my life. If I have to cry, spit, and fart on the internet, if I have to walk by faith and not by sight, I'm going to do it with tears in my eyes and with fear and trembling. Because God promised each of us something. Think about Abraham. When you read the story of Abraham, we know that he was the father of our faith. But what if Abraham would have told God no when God randomly appeared to him and said, hey, Abe, leave your father's house and go to a land that I will show you? What if Abraham said, no, I'm not going. Tell me, or open another door before I leave my father's house. Would Abraham be the father of our faith? No. So when we're thinking about faith, because I know a lot of people like to think God won't, tell you to do something that without immediately opening another door. That's just not true. Abraham did not immediately have another door. He had a promise. And I want you to look at everything God promised him. Abraham moved on a promise. And then he left his father's house. And then he started to sojourn. And then God showed him the place. But God didn't show him the place before he left. God didn't give him anything until he left everything. It's called reckless abandonment. You have to recklessly abandon the things you want in your life and everything like that to follow Christ, to step into the uncommon light. But the reason why majority of us don't is because we're scared. We're afraid. And then we critique people who have the courage to do what we don't have the courage to do. I've been learning a very valuable lesson about following God. I've been learning that not just that his ways are not my ways, because that's cliche, but I've just been learning that he will tell you to do something and then watch you do it silent. He'll say, do this thing. And then he will sit back and watch you try to do it. And even when you feel like you're failing, even when you feel like it's not working, he'll say, live, go ahead, go ahead. You can do this because I've strengthened you for this moment. I've prepared you for this moment. You have to believe that you are prepared. You have to believe that you are ready. And it is when God invites us out of our boat that he lets us know that's a signal. You're ready. You're ready. But unfortunately, we've been conditioned to believe that we're not ready, that we're somehow always still just waiting on God. And I'm not talking about the holding pattern that God has people in. I'm talking about the real fact that somehow we have believed a lie that has said that we are not more than conquerors. We have believed the lie that has said that we are bound to a lesser life, to only a life of suffering. We believed the lie. And while there is suffering, and while there will be tribulation, you're not called to a life of suffering, of endless suffering. Now, I know some of the religious people are going to say, well, consider Jesus. Was he suffering his entire life? Do we know that he suffered his entire life? We know about his big suffering. We know about some of the moments of human weakness that he experienced. But every day, does your Bible tell you that he suffered every day? No. So why do you think that you were created only to suffer? It doesn't make you more holy. It doesn't make you more righteous. Becoming an uncommon believer means walking on water. It means defying all the odds. It means taking God at his word and saying, yes, I feel this way. But that does not make your word null and void. Yes, I am having a hard season, but that does not mean you are not still true. Yes, you're going to cry. Yes, you're going to want to throw in the towel. Yes, you're going to want to question your salvation. Trust me, I've done that a lot. But that doesn't make the promises any less true and any less real for you. The uncommon life is available to everyone who would take it, just like salvation. It's available to everyone who would take it. But as believers, we are only comfortable with the salvation part and not the abundant life. And in order to get to the abundant life, y'all, you're going to have to walk through the fire. You're going to have to walk through some tests and trials. Today, I was originally going to talk about understanding your authority and dominion, and we're going to get into that. But I want you to understand, as you begin to try to rise under the weight of who God called you to be, I want you to know that there will be pushback. And that does not mean that you're not on the right track. That does not mean that God did not tell you to do something because there's demonic pushback. That does not mean that. It means that all of heaven and hell are crowding around to see, how badly do you really want this? How badly do you really want this? And what if the opposition was only signals to ask you, to ask yourself, how badly do I want the future? With this in mind, I want to talk about understanding your dominion, understanding your authority, because that's the season that I've been in, to be honest. We all understand that we lost dominion with the fall of man in Genesis. You know, when God gave us the spirit in Genesis 1, he was speaking to us, and when he was creating the spirit, he told us we're going to have dominion. We're going to have rulership over the earth. Well, we know with the fall of man, we lost that rulership. We lost that dominion. And this is why Christ had to come back to kind of reestablish that dominion that we originally lost with the fall of man. But here's the catch, y'all. You have not walked in dominion your whole life. You've had access to it. You've known you've had it, because if you're created in the image of God, you have to know you have dominion on the earth. You've done all these things. You matriculated through life, but the rules of the world will generally start to kind of force you and bind you into a box to give up your dominion every day, to give up your authority every day, like rightfully lay it down every day, and then mock you for doing so, mock you for not being far enough. But I think this whole journey that we're on, especially within the last few years, is God training us on dominion, and also hell fighting us not to use our dominion. Because it's not that the devil wants your job, or wants your house, or wants your car. He wants your dominion. Because we started to split dominion on the earth with the fall of man. That's the legal right we gave the enemy. The earth was ours. That's what God gave us. We gave the legal right or co-rulership to Satan. But that does not make your rulership any less potent. That does not mean that you are not as supreme as you're supposed to be. That does not mean that. And when God lets us go through trials, this is what I'm learning in real time. Now, I don't like it. I'm just going to be honest. I don't like it. But when God lets us go through these trials, and he lets us go through these tribulations, these fiery moments, sometimes it's him showing you just how strong you are, just how powerful you are. He doesn't think that you're some just lowly slave. He sees you as a son or a daughter. He said you are co-heir. He said that you are the heir to the throne. You are a co-heir with Jesus. And so why would someone who is giving you authority and giving you dominion and said you are a co-heir, you're rightfully restored to your rightful rulership, why would he think of you as a servant? Like, really? I do know we serve the Lord, and I'm not telling you to think of yourself higher than what you should, but why don't you say what God has said about you? Or why don't you believe the report of the Lord that God has said, hey, yo, I see you as the strong person. You are now ready to rule. I am giving you authority to rule. And then the enemy like, no, you're not. We're not giving this person authority. And that's what's been happening to me. I've been trying to learn about my rightful inheritance. I've been trying to learn about my authority. I've been trying to learn about the kingdom because I'm like, something just doesn't feel right here. Something, what? I don't feel like I'm supposed to be this low. And I'm not even low by a lot of people's standards, but I feel like I'm lower than my rightful inheritance. I feel like I'm lower than what I should be. And it's those moments of dissatisfaction where I begin to tap into the truth of who I am. We like to throw around identity. We like to throw that around. You got to find your identity. Yeah. But what about people who know their identity, but are struggling just to exercise their authority? Those are the more nuanced conversations that I think we should have as believers with one another. This is not a black and white issue. When people walk through struggles, it's not just demons and the demonic. Some of it is, but some of it is training, on the job training, on the job training. And that's the hardest type of training. Hands-on training. You want to know if you're strong? Go ahead and throw you in combat. I've told you everything, right? This is God speaking to us. I've told you everything. I've showed you what to do. Go ahead and let me see. This is show and tell. And so when we're thinking about becoming uncommon believers, y'all, we just have to practice. This is what I'm learning. We have to practice standing and walking in authority and dominion. And that does not mean that there won't be moments of weakness. And that does not mean that there won't be moments of trials and tribulations or moments where you want to give up or you like, am I even on the right track? I don't even know if I'm on the right track now. Like, that doesn't mean that those moments are going to suddenly disappear when you start following God. No, they're going to be more pronounced. Why? Because you have an opponent. You have an enemy. Hell hates you. So as we move through the month of September and as we move through Q4, the best quarter of the year because my birthday's in October, as we move through these moments, may we never forget that some of this training on earth is authority training. Some of this training on earth is walking in dominion. And when you are able to do that and fully grasp that, this is when you're able to walk into an uncommon life. This is when you're able to walk into the life that God has for you and not the life that you've seen other people model or other people say you can have. This is about you. This is about your life. One thing that I hold on to, and we're about to wrap up, one thing that I hold on to is this testimony by a pastor. And this is when I was living in Vegas and I was, about to transition out here to Texas. And I heard this pastor say that he had given up everything. He had given up everything, and it was similar in a similar place that I was in the other podcast. But he had given up everything. And he's like, Lord, I've given up everything. Like, look, like I've suffered for you. I'm suffering for righteousness' sake. I've given up all this stuff, blah, blah, blah. Like I don't have anything, Lord. And he said, God said to him, and now you have just become a believer. Now you have just become a believer. Because people in the Old Testament did that. I mean, not Old Testament. People in the Bible did that. They gave up everything to follow Christ. Everything. Job, family, gifts, everything. They gave up everything to follow Christ. And what God said to this man, now you are becoming a believer. That's what I am in right now. Now I am becoming a believer, not a Christian. Not what I heard God say and do it for other people. Not surviving off of the testimonies of other people and still silently wondering, will you do it for me? I am now becoming a believer. And can I tell you, it is the most uncomfortable thing. It is the most uncomfortable thing because I could say all day with my mouth that I believe. But it's when I walk this thing out that I really know, or I'm really able to test. Do you believe? Or have you just been offering empty words to God? This whole time, where has your heart been? You know the scripture that says they honor me with their lips and their hearts are far from me. This journey, though it has been hard, has shown me where my heart was, and it wasn't far from him. I was struggling to honor him with my lips, but my heart was tethered to him because I don't have anything else. And those are the moments when you realize where you built your faith. Just how flimsy the things that we build our faith on, just how flimsy they are. They can never sustain us, but we depend on them because we've been conditioned. But it is in you walking out of the boat. It is in you taking God at his word. It is in you doing something that a lot of people don't have the courage to do. that is when you're able to see God for yourself. It's not just reading the stories of people's lives in the Bible, because whose stories were they reading? Whose stories were the people in the Bible reading? Whose story did Moses read for encouragement? Whose story did Abraham read for encouragement? Whose story did Deborah read for encouragement? They were living epistles, walking out their lives and doing what they were supposed to do. And then, because of the legacy and the obedience that they walked in, were able to read of their lives. In a similar way, people are reading of your life. People are reading my life. The Bible tells you that you are a living epistle. So when people read your life, don't let them read the sanitized version. Don't let them read the edited version where you just say, oh, can we just take that part out? Tell the truth. Tell the whole truth. Even though the truth can be painful, and even though you may want to save face, you don't know whose life you're saving. Look at all the Bible. The Bible sometimes be telling on everybody. I'm sure David didn't want anyone to know what he did to Uriah, that embarrassment. But we use his life and his embarrassing moment as a lesson of what not to do, as a lesson on how to tame ourselves and humble ourselves under God, and not just do shady stuff, shady criminal stuff at that, right? We use that life. And so when people are reading of you, what would they say? What would they understand? And this is not the sanitized version. This is not the, oh, I'm looking back and I'm so far removed from the journey that I can just tell you with a straight face that this was the story. Sometimes people need to hear the raw and unfiltered truth. And I know this because when I was trying to develop a better relationship with my mother, we had to have woman conversations, woman to woman. And it was time out for the mother-daughter conversations, right? Because those weren't working. There was a lot I just didn't understand. But when she sat down and told me her story, for the first time, I heard the woman and not the mother. And in understanding the woman, I said, I get that. I understand that. I see. I can see how you did that, right? And that brought us closer together, the vulnerability, the transparency, the honesty. When we walk this thing out with Christ, there are going to be ugly moments. And the moments may last for years. Trust me, I know. But that does not make the word of God any less true. And that does not make your life any less valuable. And that does not mean that you should listen to people who don't have a heaven or hell to put you in to tell you you should not have done that. And by done that, I mean you should not have followed God in this way. You should not have given it up and all of this. When I left my job, a lot of people said, no, I wouldn't have done it. And these are seasoned folks, seasoned believers. Seasoned believers said, no, I wouldn't have done that. I wouldn't have left. No. He would have had to give me something else. And I said, that's why this is my journey and it's not yours. This is my journey and this is not yours. God is not going to always give people a monkey bar experience. And by monkey bar experience, I mean, you let go of one thing, you take on the other. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's readily available. That's not a faith walk. That's not a faith. You don't need faith for that. You know what I mean? Like, let's be honest here. You don't need faith for that. So I never want anyone to tell people God wouldn't tell someone what to do in their own lives and they follow him and they feel like it's failed. I know what that feels like. Y'all, let's be kinder to each other and not say what God wouldn't tell someone what to do, because he will. God tell people to do crazy stuff all the time. Look in the Bible. It's crazy. All right. But may we all walk in humility. May we all walk in our purpose, but may we all walk into a place of uncommonhood with God. I don't know God like this. I don't. I knew him from the points of references that I had about him that transpired in my life. But this is me learning another nature of God. This is me learning another side of God. I don't know him like that. And I'm honest to say, no, I don't know you like that. And as a result of I don't know you like that, I really don't trust you. So we got some things to work out. But I say all this to say, we're all going to get through this uncommon life if we have the courage to do it. And if you don't have the courage to do it, I pray you get the courage, but also don't discourage other people from walking by faith and not by sight. Don't discourage other people from walking on water and having a real encounter and experience with God. God wants all of us to live uncommon lives, and lives where people can marvel and say, come and say as a result, hey, how did you do that? How did you make it this way without selling out? And you get to tell them about Jesus. Don't miss that moment. Because yes, we are all called to make disciples and all called to spread the good news. But sometimes your life spreads that news too. Your journey, your willingness, your honesty, your transparency. Sometimes your life does. And I want everyone to just walk in the truth. I'm not saying walk in your truth. I'm saying walk in the truth, which is Jesus Christ. So y'all look, we're talking about becoming an uncommon believer. I want you to look back over your life and ask yourself, were there moments when God was inviting you into the more that you just kind of just shied away from? And if they are, I want you to forgive yourself. And then I want you to look at your life now and ask, are there moments where God is asking you to give up something or to come into a different realm with Him and you're just resisting? I want you to drop your weapons. I want you to lay down your fight. And I want you to step into the uncommon life. Give it up. It's not going to be easy. It won't be a cakewalk. But you will see the salvation of the Lord and you will progress your lineage. You will progress your lineage. I hope this has encouraged you, giving you some things to think about, right? If it has, I want you to go ahead and like this video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and also join my mailing list at briannawhiteside.com. If you need additional resources, we are promoting the Intentional You bundle, equipped with 2 ebooks, Have You Decided About You? And Intentional Focus. Because in order to get from glory to glory, in order to shorten your distance from where you are to where you want to be, you have to be intentional. And that is not just in theory, but in practice. I'll see y'all soon next Sunday on another installment of the Book of Brianna podcast. Bye.